This is your pre-operational paint machine check. So the purpose of this is to set the machine up for striping operations. Prototypical tire kick, make sure the tires are inflated. From there, we're going to move on to the fuel. Always try to ensure your fuel's topped off. And if you've never seen this kind of fuel can, this is highly recommended. Release the fuel from here, kind of get a double grip on it. Let it flow. When it's topped off, let that yellow handle go forward. That stops the fuel. So now we're topped off on the fuel. Next check before we get started, let's make sure we have some paint. Paint, good. Secure the lid. Try to have the lid completely secure that no air gets in. When we're using the acetone-based paint, oxygen and acetone, the acetone will dissipate faster the more oxygen and sunlight get on it. So try to keep it secure at all times, secure the straps. So from there, now the tires are good, fuel, paint, we're ready to start it up. Couple of things, we have our off and on switch right here. Flip it up to point down at on. From there we have choke. This is choke on. The choke needs to be on to start the machine. This bottom black knob is for fuel. So this is full fuel. If I turn that off, the machine is going to get no fuel. And this lever here is for the throttle, which we will actually operate on the dashboard with this knob here. So as I manipulate this knob on the dashboard, the fuel throttle will move. So to start the machine, again, choke on, grab and pull. Once the machine is running, you can hear how it's choking a little bit. So let's take and ease the choke off. Again, your throttle can be adjusted up here. Some more dashboard items. This knob is the pressure control. This knob controls how hard the spray is going to come out of the gun. This switch over here, depending on the machine, these switches will look a little different. This is a 3900. To activate the pump so the paint will spray out of the guns, you have to hit the switch down to turn the pump on. There's a neutral position that takes the pump off, but still keeps the machine operational. If you need to kill the machine, push the Ghostbuster sign. So the next step now is going to be to prep the guns for spraying. Okay, you're going to need some kind of pick. We get these from Harbor Freight. They're like $3 for 4 of them. And then your actual paint gun. The orange is a paint guard. The yellow is the tip. Pay attention to the tip size. So we use anywhere from a 321 to a 319 to a 317. Okay, depending on the speed of your striper and the purpose of what you're striping, we like to use 317s if somebody stripes very slow, because the paint comes out a little bit slower. A 321 tip, the paint comes out a little bit faster. So if you have somebody who can stripe a little bit faster, a 321 is a good option, because you have to monitor the thickness of the paint as it's going on the ground. Too thick and it might chip up. So there's actually a required amount of density of the paint on the ground that has to be met. And you could actually look in the Graco manuals for that. But a 319 is another valid option. So you can always check what your tip is. The numbers are going to be right there. The tip is then manipulated in 2 different fashions. The single side is for spraying. This is your clear out side. So you're going to be spraying, and if you get a clog, if you're spraying or striping stencils using this side and it starts to spray funny, it starts to shoot to the side, simply manipulate to the clear out side, find somewhere to spray, give it a hit, and then this will clear it all out. But for pre-operational, you just going to get your pick and clear away all the crusty paint. The spray guard swivels, so you want to make sure that you manipulate it around a little bit. Sometimes this is a good example, sometimes you have to take it off. So the spray guard should manipulate differently from that little silver nut. Now we're going to mount the gun on the machine. But let's put the tip back in neutral so that we don't have any accidental discharges. On your on the spray arm, a couple of important factors. So you have some knobs for adjusting the pivot of the arm as well as the height. So this knob on the outside manipulates the height. The one on the inside can manipulate, come back over here, the angle of the gun, and it shortens or lengthens it. So we recommend, on the shaft here, there's some little markings. The markings are there so you can have a visual measurement. We recommend not the first line, but the second line. You line it up right there, get a visual down the gun holder, and then lock it in tight. Usually somewhere around here is going to get you striping around the 4-inch line. So we're going to lower it down there. It's really important you get these things super tight so when you're pushing the paint machine, you don't have a free swiveling arm. So get these things super tight, as well as this knob here. This knob can control how close or far away the entire arm assembly is from the frame of the machine. So you want to undo the screw, not all the way out, but you want to undo the screw because this threaded part will push through. So if it's still threaded in, it's going to be hard to get the gun in. And then you're going to get this section of the gun to pivot up and inside. Just like that. If you can see on the side here, the gun kind of slides back and forth. You want to try to pivot the gun back as far as possible before locking it down. So the next thing we're going to look at are the gun cables. There's two different cables. This is the trigger cable to spray from the handlebar. You can denote that one by the spring. The other cable without the spring is your auto layout cable. We have learned over the years to disengage, to take this off, disengage it, kind of tuck it down in there. Sometimes this will, if you have it hooked up, it will hang up, and then what you'll end up with is a huge pile of paint on the ground. So we found that disconnecting it and tucking it down in there prevents any accidental discharges or the trigger assembly from sticking. That being said, if you follow these gun cables back, even to right here, the more thread that you see, the more slack it takes out, or the more touchy the spray gets. So we always recommend to take the majority of the thread away to keep the most amount of slack in the line as possible. And I'm going to show you that up again on the handlebar. At the handlebar, again, here's the gun cable. This is the one that leads down to the gun where the spring is at. So again, the more thread that you see actually out this way. So as I'm doing this and rotating the nut, this is adding more slack to the line on this side. Same thing right here. There's another nut on the cable right here. And again, the more thread you see, the tighter it is. So try to take away as much of the thread as possible so you have a good amount of slack in the line. The next feature that we have to pay attention to is this is what will ultimately, as you pull the trigger, engage the gun in the holder. So you have two different selections here, a little bit looser on that, a little bit tighter. That's how you'll spray ultimately the paint on the ground. So now we're going to start the machine back up and we're going to show you how to get the paint moving through the lines. Your pressure is at 12 o'clock for striping. When you're stenciling, turn it down to somewhere about 9 or 10 o'clock for stenciling, and that prevents any buildup. But 12 o'clock position is pretty good for line striping. So that's the intent today. We're gonna set it at 12 o'clock. The next step we need to do is activate the pump. We already talked about that. So we're gonna push and activate the pump right there. And then we have a choice to either spray or recirculate. You wanna recirculate the paint inside the machine by using this knob. When this knob is painting forward, it's like you're striping forward. So know that when this knob is forward, that's meant for paint to come out of the gun for you to line stripe. To recirculate the paint, turn that switch down, and I'll show you what that looks like. So this big knob here is considered to be the microphone. It takes the paint in. As it sucks the paint in, it recirculates it through that knob. Now that we've recirculated the paint, we want to put it back in striping mode. The next step that we want to take is setting up the gun for line striping. You have to keep in mind a couple of factors. Is it going to be a restripe of existing lines or an installation of new lines? For a restripe of a pre-existing line, we'll use this line right here. Simply take a measurement with your tape. This is a 5-inch line. So what we would want to do with the gun is to set it up to spray 5 inches. To manipulate the width of the spray, again, we're going to use this knob and elevate or lower to get a 5-inch spray pattern. And actually, we'll show you how to do exactly that here in just a minute. Setting up for line striping, the swing of the arm is important. If the paint is going to come out of here and stripe the ground, we usually recommend that you have it at about a 1 to 2 o'clock position, and then you're going to have to reposition the spray nozzle or the spray guard to aim the paint properly. So with it, it'll stripe the line out here away from the tire. That's the important part. The closer the arm is in, you have a chance of driving over top of the line with the tire. That's what you don't want. So swing it out to about the 1 to 2 o'clock position, manipulate the nozzle to look like appeared straight, and you can use the front of the machine as a quick little reference as to what might be straight. When you're looking down at the nozzle, referencing this, how can I get it straight? And keep twisting it until it looks like it's visually straight, and then we're gonna do a test spray. For our test spray, we're gonna rotate down to spray, fire the machine up and get a test spray. Just so you can see what it looks like to clear out. That's clearing out the line, and then this will be your test spray. You want to measure the width. So right now we're just shy of 4 inches. We're at 3 3/4 of an inch. So now let's get that up to 5 as we measured the restripe line earlier. Now we're right at 5 inches, we're ready to go. These two switches, you want to make sure your lasers are plugged in, so you have your long line laser here and your dot laser. For a restripe, we're only going to use the dot laser for now, but you want to make sure everything is plugged in. So this is a very common plug for the dot lasers and the long line lasers. Make sure everything is plugged in, trace it back to the source, to the battery. Again, there's another one of those connection points there. Just make sure everything's connected. And then these are our activation switches. So now we're tracking the green dot here. On the left, or you could use the right side if you chose, but the most common is a left side dot. So you want to use your test spray and center the dot on the left hand side of the test spray in the middle of the spray pattern. If we're going into a new installation, the most common installation lines are going to be 4 inches, and then we're going to set up the line, set up the laser dot for center application. We'll show you that now. So there's our 4 inches. Now we want to set up the laser dot in the center for new installation. That looks good right there. Now that the machine has been pre-op for line striping, let's go.